And I am here with Predictive Astrologer Anne Ortelee. We're here together for your weekly astrological weather. And I don't even know if I need to ask, but I will anyways.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Do the number thing again, Amanda.
I mean, it just helps me make sense of it all. Last week, and when you said it starts as a 4 and then it ended at like, I don't know, what did you say, 8 or something?
8, 9, 10, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
it would be bigger. Yeah.
And then experiencing it, it was like, God, there she is. She's right on again. So tell us, like, where are we at this week in terms of intensity?
We're going to sustain at a 10, 9, 10. This is, one of the things that astrologers always do, and I'm kind of known for saying it, I always go, the eclipses are coming! The eclipses are coming! So I said last week, we're moving into eclipse period. I just didn't figure it'd be so friggin' big. But, I'm like, all right, Mars and Pisces, he's a little shifty, that Mars and Pisces. So we're entering an 8-week period where the eclipses are here. And what they're doing is they're taking us back to the earlier times. They're also taking us back to the eclipses that happened before 9/11. So we're having this kind of reawakening of our new direction. So with this idea, we recognize that we're in an intense period because there's 3 of them this year. There's a full moon one in this week on June 5th. Then which is an emotional energy. And then we figure out what we're going to do with it on June 21st. And then another big emotional energy on July 5th. So we have 3 parts. And so emotion, focus, emotion. But remember, when eclipses happen, everybody, because the nodes of fate are meeting the sun and the moon, and the nodes in the mythology are the dragons. We think fire imagery, right? And the nodes right now are on the world point of 0 Sagittarius, which is right next to 0, or 29 Sag, which is right next to 0 Cancer. So these nodes are an exact hit, which makes them bigger. It just makes the eclipse energy bigger. But it also, because it is on the Sag-Gemini axis, we suddenly shifted from Cancer Capricorn, where we were kind of going along okay, into this very mutable, changeable thing. Mercury is words, communication. Sagittarius is fires, which I said last week, we had the twin towers, Saturn, Gemini, and fire, so now we have fire, kind of all over the country. But it also is understanding that what eclipses want us to do, they make us feel like we can't take it a second longer. We can't. So we have this energy of, I have to do something. And as Mars took off towards Uranus last week, Uranus was kind of an explosion energy. It kind of exploded. And so he's going to be doing this until he gets to Neptune, which is next week. It's not now. We're not coming down now right away. But the idea is, with eclipses, and you're going to feel it in your life, it's going to reveal stuff. I've had about 5 people email me, oh my God, you know what I just found out? Because it's Gemini, it's giving us information. It's also lots of different versions of information. And I said last week, Mercury was going into Cancer. So every 2.5 days when the moon shifts, we're going to have a new emotional nature, a new emotional feeling on that node. And the node, of course, the south node is in Gemini. So the conversation is going to go over here and then go over there, and kind of like the stuff, there's stuff here, there's stuff there, there's all this stuff all over the place. Where are you focusing your attention? And Mercury is also out of bounds, so he's very wild. And when a planet goes out of bounds, my analogy is it's a home run, that's good. When it's out of bounds the bad way, it's a line drive into the stands. And here comes Remo, because he loves you, Amanda.
I love
Thank
you,
you, Remo, for telling me to be quiet so Amanda can talk. Yeah. Little black cat ears, that's Remo, yeah. So that's what it is. So going to be intense, where we basically got 8 weeks of it.
And when did the 8 weeks start? It was last week, right?
Friday before Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
So we saw all the parties right on Memorial Day weekend, and then we had the 2 Coopers in Gemini, right? And then we had the incident in Minneapolis where we watched somebody die, and the dual nature of the energy is really up. So it's understanding Gemini is, two stories going on. Two, watch this, oh, watch this. And remember, Gemini is a magician. Mercury's a magician. He's the trickster. He likes to trick things. So that's the other part is in New York, when it's functional, when you ride a bus and the pickpockets get on the bus, because South Node in Gemini's pickpocket, they're nice people, but they can steal. And the bus driver will announce, there's a pickpocket on the bus. There's a pickpocket on the bus. And everybody goes like this, and gets ready for the pickpocket, right? So, it's understanding we're in that energy where we're kind of going, what do I watch? And we're going to attract what we're supposed to see. Well, that's important. And then we're going to attract what we're supposed to hear. And that's important too. And for each of us on our own journey, as we go through this, that's the energy, is we're going to be watching and learning what we're supposed to learn. And our job, I always feel when because Mercury's now in his shadow too. So he's going to go retrograde in Cancer. So there's going to be all these waves of different stories. The analogy I'd used in my newsletter was, whitewater rafting. You get thrown out of the river, make sure your feet are going downstream and we'll pick you up around the bend. And then, and the guide says, okay, go over here. And then we're going to paddle a lot. And then we're going to go there. And then we're going to turn. And then you hit that thing and you're like, oh my God, I got thrown out of the raft. So if you got thrown out of the raft this week, I know I did. I had a day where I just kind of cried. That's okay. That's it's turbulent water. It's turbulent water. The eclipses are here to turbulent. And remember, the dragons eat the lights. So lights are going to go out. I mean, the White House was literally unlit. They made it dark, right? The lights go out. So the lights.
What did you say about dragons? Dragons what?
Dragons. The nodes of fate are called the dragons.
And they eat the light?
That's how the eclipses happen. That's the mythology.
Right. Oh, amazing. I haven't thought of it that literally. Okay.
Well, it's called Rahu and Ketu, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. And in the Vedic Indian astrology, the myth is the gods and the demons are fighting. And they ask for guidance and they say, we'll give you the nectar of immortality. So they spin and they spin and they spin and the nectar of immortality comes out and everybody scrambles for it. And the demons are told, you sit there, and the gods are told, you sit there. And one of the demons figures out what's going on, and he goes and sits with the gods. And as he's sitting drinking it, the sun and the moon realize it's him. And they shout out, and they send a thing and cut his head up, cut him in half. But he is already drunken of immortality, and he is angry. So twice a year, he gobbles up the sun and the moon when he runs into them in the sky. So eclipses mean to leave. Eklippen means to leave, but they also mean, and literally the sun and the moon get eaten up by the dragons. That's how they explained it in mythology. And dragons breathe fire. Yeah.
And the other word that I keep coming across, or that I keep thinking of for Gemini is, so we say dual, but also polarize.
Polarized, totally.
So, and we're seeing that so extreme, and we have been seeing that. I mean, we've been seeing that for a long time, but it's been blatantly clear this year, and now it's even more clear. This polarization,
yes,
and this division that's happening. And so, how does the race, does the astrology explain what's happening?
Yeah,
from a race perspective right now?
Yeah, it does, actually. It does. Sorry about that. I forgot to unplug the phone. I'm going to throw it on the floor and the person, hang up. What happens is, thank you, Mercury, for interrupting that. Okay. So I want to say this in a way that people don't take offense, but I'm going to say it. Astrology covers everything, right, in the sky. So there's two houses that are associated with slavery or servitude. One of them is the Virgo house, and Pluto now is in the Virgo decan, which is the 10 degrees, from 20 to 30 is Virgo. So Virgo is a servant house. So that's where we're the first responders are our servers, the people that work for us as clerks, as waiters and waitresses. Virgo is healthcare workers. So that the bus drivers, the subway drivers, that's all Virgo. In the old days, back when astrology was invented, Virgos were your indentured servants that could work and be set free. They were also your apprentices. You would go and apprentice for a trade at age 14 to 22 and learn a trade. So Virgo is the apprentice part. Pisces, and we've had slavery our whole life, our whole history. Pisces is the sign of slavery. And so Mars is in Pisces. So it's a war right now. But also, we're talking about entering the age of Aquarius. So we've been for 2,500 years in Pisces, where we really have worked out. I mean, we haven't figured it out, but we've become aware of it, that, hey, slavery really isn't right. We originally got freed from being slaves to the king. Then we said, hey, we don't want slavery here. We don't want slavery. We kind of banned it. I mean, we still have sex trafficking, which is a form of slavery, but we're migrating into the age of Aquarius, which is where everybody's equal. We're all part of the tribe. We're all part of the community. But as we're going, of course, whenever we change things, there's a huge shift where people go, I like slavery. I think that's good. I think servitude is good. We had the whole arguments about how much money to give people, give them $1,200 a month. No, that's too much money. They won't want to work. Virgo, right? I mean, we're watching that dialogue happen live and in color in our country, in our world. And so now with Mars and Pisces, we're having the revolt, the action, the war, the slave class who were former slaves at some point in their legacy, not the people currently on Earth, but their group, or the people that are the underclass slaves, the farmer workers that are moving around and picking our fruit and vegetables. We're looking and we're saying, hey, we need to look at this differently. So when Mars hit it last week and this hit, I mean, I knew we were having the eclipses. I knew they were going to be big. We actually talked, you were going to have Gemini Brett talk about how big they were going to be. But when this happened, I went, oh, wow, Mars and Pisces. Yeah, got it. And this is the start. You've been telling you to get your food, which is Mars in Aries is the next chapter, and that's red. This is water. This is peaceful. And I know there's fires and stuff, but the stuff that's coming, which is one of the reasons we've been talking about, preparing and getting your food and knowing. But the Mars and Pisces is the slaves. Pisces is slavery and owned. I own this. It's also the house of, behind the scenes and hidden things. But Virgo is the sign of the workers. So we have these two areas that are very active right now as we're shifting literally into the age of Aquarius as we're migrating, but power never gives up easy. And we're going from, we heard the president the other day saying we have to dominate. It's like, hey, that's old world. Like, go ahead and try and dominate me. Go. And then, of course, the imagery, Saturn rules knees. So we started the thing with Colin Kaepernick kneeling, protesting. And now we see images of police officers kneeling. And I had someone say to me, were they disrespecting? And I went, oh, interesting. I said, no, they're supporting. When the police officers get down on your knees, when you get down on your knees and you pray, right, you're humbled. And Saturn rules your knees. So Saturn and Pluto, we are redefining and changing the concept of on your knees. Right. And it's very literal. I mean, astrology is super literal. When you do the keywords, you go, okay, on your knees. When you get down on your knees and you pray, I was raised a Catholic, you genuflect, you bow, you honor, you say, notice this. And literally we saw people kneeling on someone and killing them with a knee. And I mean, I never thought of a knee being a way to kill. I mean, we had Eric Gardner here, so I did know that you could kneel on somebody and kill them, but that was a chokehold. It wasn't a knee. But it's like, really. And of course, Aquarius rules air. We have a virus where people go, I can't breathe. And then we've got this guy saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And of course, breath, 3 minutes without breath, you're dead. My father had us saying 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air, and you're out of here. So, but we're really literally seeing Saturn, Pluto, the knees killing someone. And I think the mythology, the archetypes, the keywords give us a guide to this. And then they say, okay, how do we do it? We all get down on our knees and we all say, let me be humbled. Let me get down on my knees and let me understand what you're going through. Because and why do the mob kneecap people? They kneecap people because if you don't have your knees, you can't move. That makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. And at the new moon, in our inner circle ceremony that we did, we were talking about breath, and breath being associated with Gemini, air. But also, if you think about what's capable in breath,
yes,
when we're actually breathing and allowing space for breath, whether that's within ourselves, within a dialogue with another person, allowing for that pause, that breath, that's when true connectivity can happen. That's when true conductivity can happen. And without that, it's constricted, it's restricted, we're closed off, we can't hear, we can't. So it's the breath coming back into this conversation it's like, get on your knees and breathe. Get on your knees and connect to your breath and to each other, and the fact that we are all connected by this breath. And oh man, there is so much here. So Anne, so we know it's intense. Intense isn't even a word now. Like inflamed, enraged, like unpredictable, right? Predictable in its
Mars trined Uranus, right? So we knew there was going to be something, and we didn't say this last week, but I came flying around the corner and I slipped and fell on my knees right before the podcast, and I went, oh, what? And I'm like, oh, it's that goddamn Mars Uranus, like boom, and I slipped in cat vomit and went. Which I'd heard and I hadn't cleaned up. But I was like, okay, down on your knees, Anne. So my left knee's been a little bruised. Jamie asked me, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, a little bruised, but I'm good, moving along. But when we take a breath, like when you're giving birth, they tell you to breathe. When they stick you with a needle, when my acupuncturist sticks me with a needle, she's like, breathe. When I go for a lymphatic massage, the breath worker is like, like breathe it out of you. It's breath is so important. And that is really what we need to do, is take breaths and understand the symbolicness of it, and watch for the hidden meaning. When someone said, oh, they're mocking them, and I'm like, no, but we have to honor that there's a dual nature, that people are going to take it multiple ways. And our job is to say, what do we want? And when we get divided, because Gemini divides, right? It's a little bit of a rivalry. When someone shows up with Mars and Gemini in their chart, I go, oh, so you had a little sibling rivalry there, huh? And they're like, yeah, because Mars and Gemini is, we like to fight. We have a Gemini president who says divide, divide. And we have to go, is that how we want to be? And some people want to be divided. And I'm like, great, but you aren't in charge anymore. Because Aquarian is the collective. We all have to work together as an Aquarian. We are the audience watching, literally. But what we're watching is something that's a shared experience where we're all around the world. And, when the leaked tape the other day, when he was saying, well, everybody's laughing at us, I'm like, well, I'm not laughing, I'm crying. My city's having riots. My city's having amazing peaceful protesters too. And it's the two sides.
Yeah.
And we have to look at both sides. We have to say, there are all these people protesting politely and have, like our right to assemble, our right to say, hey, we need, and of course, remember, when the public comes in, it makes it change. So we are bringing about change by organizing the collective, the Aquarian, to say, okay, and we have to watch and say, what's our vision of what we want? And all of us, all of us have to step in and say, hey, this needs to change. And I'm not everybody's going to go along at the same time. I get that. But the majority of us that are going, hey, we need to fix this. This is not right. We watched somebody die in front of us, and he sat on him an extra 3 minutes, which is all you need to be dead once he stopped moving. So it's understanding that what it did to me was, it also made me go, we need to really get food. We need to get food. We need to understand this is going to get a lot worse in the fall if we are not conscious beings working with it and saying, okay, Not in my house, not in my yard, not in my world. This is not acceptable. You and I are the same. We're both people. We peel this skin off. You can't tell what my race is if you peel off the skin. It's the wrapping paper. But of course, Saturn rules skin, right? Capricorn rules skin and bones and knees and teeth. So one of the people had their teeth knocked out. I'm like, Saturn. I mean, just what you want to do. It's a way to process it, at least how I process it. Like, oh, there's another reference to Saturn. Oh, there's another reference to Pluto. Oh, there's another reference to transforming, right? And understanding that you want to look for these because that will help you cope. And then you always want to do your Saturn because he's really big right now. We all have Saturn. We all have knees. And we all have to do that knee work. We have to get down on our knees and, scrub the floor, do what our Saturn is, whatever it is. Yeah.
I'll never forget what Christopher Renstrom said at the 2020 global forecast in January. When he was talking about Pluto and how we would be tearing up the floorboards of our house, quote unquote, or of the structures that we've built. And we will have the opportunity to see whether there's rot or buried treasure underneath. And as we're in this moment of extreme shadow, darkness, I mean, being able to truly see the underbelly of humanity, like in clear, broad daylight, it's like, okay, we're looking at a lot of rot under those floorboards. We're looking at a lot, and it's uncomfortable and disgusting and hard for anyone to be in this place of like, it's a place of revelation. We're seeing it. I mean, we've said this before, but apocalypse, the word apocalypse means the lifting of the veil. It's like, we're lifting the veil. We're seeing what is underneath, and it's not pretty. And yet there is pretty, like you said, there is people coming together and protesting peacefully and standing up for what's right and being mobilized into action. And so it's like this this simultaneous thing happening where we're seeing in the revelation of what's breaking down and gasping for its last breath of air, right? And then we're also at the same time seeing what is starting to emerge, what is starting to come through, and who are we becoming in this really in the alchemical fires of transformation. And can I read something?
Yeah, totally. Go for it.
You guys, I have to read this to you because one of my spiritual teachers who has been an incredible mentor to me for the last almost 10 years is a man named Michael Beckwith. Many of you are probably familiar with him. He runs a non-denominational spiritual community in Southern California called Agape. And every Sunday, it's church-like, but not, because it's crossing all boundaries and barriers. And last week he gave Sunday, he gave a sermon, and I highly encourage any of you who resonate with what I'm going to read next to check it out. It's agapelive.com. You go to streaming archives, you choose Sunday, May 31st. And then I always listen to the 9 a.m. service because for whatever reason I just do, but he does 3 services a day on Sunday. Okay. Then you go to 9 a.m. And then if you want to just hear what he's saying, which is like a 20-minute, 25-minute, incredible, like so relevant, so mind-blowing talk, you started at minute 41. Okay. But I'm going, so minute
that way
41,
you can save that extra minute and a half, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can start at 40.
No, it's good. You only got 3 minutes without oxygen and then you're dead. Right?
Exactly. All right. So here's, I'm going to like summarize, paraphrase some of the like really, really potent things, and it's still going to be long, but just bear with me. And
that's okay. Yeah, it's a Gemini. Right. It's Gemini. We're supposed to talk long. Yeah.
I know. Before I was like, Anne, I want to read something, but it's long. She's like, it's Gemini. We're supposed to be long-winded today. I'm like, okay, great. Okay. So this is what he says. Whenever there is chaos, there's something bigger trying to emerge. And this is our moment. It is the moment of visionaries. It is the moment of urban shamans. It is the moment of mystics. It is the moment of praying folks. I'm not saying don't do anything, but it's the moment when those who have inside eyes to see the possible begin to really get down, and he's meaning get down on your knees, so that a clear articulation of what is possible can emerge, and not just resign yourself to the fact of this is the way it's always been. It's always been this way. Abuse of power has always been here. Politicians have always lied. This is the opportunity to understand what the word impossible means. When you spell it out, it spells I'm possible. So what you think is impossible in terms of change and transformation, forward movement and evolution is possible when we tap into the dynamic, eternal, loving presence of intelligence, wisdom, power, and allow that to be where we're living while we ask, what is it that's mine to do? It's not time to be a bystander right now. This is not that time. I know there's fear. People are scared. So much is going on around the pandemic. I know all of that, but this is your moment. I'm asking this. On one level, for my African-American brothers and sisters to tap into the power of their ancestors, even the ancestors before the history of slavery, to begin to feel that frequency and vibration. I'm asking our white brothers and sisters to tap into the ancestors of their abolitionist forefathers, those that said, we're not going to live with this system. And every culture has ancestors that fought for justice, freedom, and right action. Tap into it. And do you know what you're going to bump into? You're going to go beyond the ancestral realm, beyond the angelic realm, into pure consciousness of God, where we all meet. And we will have a downpouring of light and luminosity, and we'll begin to see together a global Pentecost, meaning everyone will hear it according to their own language and their own perception, the great possibility that we can all live in. This apocalyptic moment that is the end of one world and the birth of another, the veil being lifted to see what's been hidden, the dust swept under the rug for so long that's brewing anger and spewing rage. You'll be the ones that can see, and you'll ask, what is it that's mine to do? What is my gift? Let me not waste it. What is my talent? Let me not waste it. And then you'll be an ambassador of love at this time. Love is the healing balm here. You see, and your gift will be wrapped in love. Your talent will be wrapped in love. Because you have to ask yourself, what world do I want to live in? And then you have to actually be that frequency. You're not going to live in a world that you're not carrying already in yourself, because the only God you meet is the God you harbor. So the world you're going to live in is the God you're harboring. And there's so much more, but I just wanted to share that because it's a message of hope, and it's a message. And I know all of you are those people that you glimpse the possibility, you glimpse what is in you that is ready to be shared, that is wanting to come out, that probably has been wanting to come out for a long time. And what he's saying, and what we all know, and I know you know, is that this is the time. This is the time to bring forward those gifts and wrap them in love. Wrap them in love. So check it out. Agape Live. You go to live streaming. You go to the live streaming archives from Sunday, May 31st. Check out the 9 a.m. service. You can watch the whole thing. It's always amazing and so uplifting. Or you can just go right to that moment in his talk where he at minute 41.
He starts, yeah. And so when he said, I am possible, that's your Saturn, right? Doing your work. And that is the solution to this, is everybody going, I am possible, what can I do? So this morning, there were 4 girls. They cut out of work. They were down cleaning up by Macy's because they were like, this is my city. I love it. I'm going to clean up. You know, and they were there with brooms and dustpins, and one of them started to cry, and I every time anybody cries now, I cry. So it's good you didn't cry when you were reading that, Amanda.
I almost did. It was so good.
And I almost did. And I'm like, all right, it's cry time. But that's also Mars and Pisces. It's okay to have a really good cry and to spend extra time in the shower, because that's a good place to cry, or just to be really just so open. I know I've been playing music because I find that that really helpful for me, especially, spiritually uplifting music. And there was a scene in the Minnesota stuff, feels like a long time ago, where the congresswoman for that district sang Amazing Grace. And I remember when we had another racial thing, and President Obama sang Amazing Grace. And I think, we don't want to be wretched anymore. No. So it's a big week, folks. And we go to the full moon. It's the full moon, the day or so before it. The full moon is actually June 5th on Friday. So these next couple days is the moon in Scorpio. So they're very passionate, they're very intense, and we want to just be aware that there's Scorpio, of course, is the sign of death. So we're probably going to hear of some more deaths. And I think we need to be ready for that. And then we need to say, okay, we're at a transformational time. We're at a transitional time. We're at transitions aren't easy. They know, and a cultural giving birth to itself and saying we have to go. But the optimistic part, we're shifting from Earth into air, a 200-year Jupiter Saturn cycle in air. And the last time they met in air was the Magna Carta, where they said, hey, people aren't going to be subservient to kings anymore. And so now, as we're migrating into this next chapter, we have to think about, who are we subservient to? Because a lot of times when you're down on your knees, you're serving something, right? So it's get up and walk. When you see those motivational movies where someone, after they get walking and they, everybody cheers because they're walking, it's like, knees are really important. So rub your knees, honor your knees when you're feeling afraid. When people have fear, I often say, well, rub your knees, because that's the place of fear. And that can help you feel less fearful, So, yeah, it's a big week. And a lot of emotion. We also, on a high note, we have a Sun-Venus conjunction today, tomorrow, the 1st, the 2nd in Gemini. And Mercury enters his shadow, but Venus, Sun meet, and they're forming a morning star conjunction that's going to run for 9.5 months. And so they're meeting at 13 Gemini, right next to the eclipse on the 5th. So they kind of happen right before it. And Sun-Venus asks us each to think, as it's in Gemini, 13 Gemini, asks us each to think about what's important in our lives and what our role is and what our ideas are and why we think the things we do. And because it's an internal, the sun is here, Venus is here, and Earth is here. It's an internal conjunction, meaning it makes us go inward and evaluate what we want to do. Evaluate what we love, because it's the heart star. It's literally our heart point. A Sun-Venus conjunction, it's just passionate heart. Like, what is our heart space, and what do we want it to be? And I think that's happening also. It's very mixed. So it's really thinking, what's my heart space in this? What's my purpose in this? What's where I am possible? I love that. That's a real beautiful, and that's Mercury, impossible. Break it out. I am possible. That's Gemini. He goes, hey, gave you another alliteration. Ha ha ha. Oh, I'm the trickster. I love to make you see it this way. And then I like to flip it and have you go, oh, I never thought of it that way before. Right. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's true in all the things and the things that are connecting us with that depth of emotion, whether that's rage or anger or fear, because all this is happening, and yet the storyline that began in February or whenever it happened, January, I guess, is still also happening simultaneously.
Two storylines, right?
Exactly. Two. There we go, Gemini again. But one of the things he says later in that sermon is when we have this intense emotionality, so many times we regurgitate the story, like, and I'm angry about this, and I don't want this, and I can't stand that this is happening. He goes, now is the time to be taking that anger, and don't waste it. Use it, flip it. So again, Gemini, flip it and use it. So when we're in that place of intense emotionality, to tap into, with all that rage or anger, what is mine to do? What is my work? I am possible. So instead of taking it and spewing the rage to fuel the thing that we're angry about, use that rage to create the thing that we know is possible, that we're creating. And so he was talking about the misuse of that emotion and letting it leak and feed and fuel something that we don't want, instead flipping that. And he even acknowledges, and he walks through a practice of doing that. So again, check it out. But how hard that work is, how hard it is for us to do that. And yet if we can catch ourselves, and if we can, harness that intense emotionality, that we can far transcend what we ever thought was possible. So, okay. Now I have a question that's come through a few times, Anne, and I would love, because it came through last week too, but it was too late to ask. Stephanie is asking about the dates for the potential food shortage. I'm sorry.
Once we get to July 25th, Mars goes into his shadow then. Yeah.
Okay.
We have Mercury going into its shadow now. So Mercury is making us look at things different. Whenever a planet enters his shadow, so Mars enters his shadow on July 25th. So then he goes forward to station on at 28, but he's going to go through and square all the COVID planet, what I call the COVID clump. He's going to square all the planets that caused the COVID. So I had thought it would be that, and then he stops on September 9th, and then he goes backwards to 15 on November 13th, which of course is in the election time. Mars is going to be retrograde in an argument. So we do want to make sure you register to vote early and often, make sure you've registered, and then check again, because this is all the voting by mail is Mercury and Gemini. We don't want to have voting by mail. It's like, Washington votes by mail for years. Sorry, Remo's just like right up and rolling. And then Mars stations on November 13th and then goes forward to early January. So the height of it is going to be that 3 months there. He's in Aries with a Scorpio moon. I'm talking about Mars in Aries and the cat's walking back and forth in front of the screen. Astrology is very literal. And so the Aries energy is, when Mars is blocked and he's going to be in a war with these planets. This is a sextile. What we're seeing now is a sextile. Sextiles are workable aspects, which made me go, oh, wow, I better get more food. But I don't want the Max cat yelling. It was Remo, the other cat yelling at me. But yeah, I think the time frame is just to recognize that, you're seeing what's happening to the grocery stores in the neighborhoods, and you want to just be, you're ready. You've got your stuff.
And Anne, if you're in a place or a country where that's not happening, so last week someone asked me, we're not having that same thing.
Well, then they want to watch what's happening in their culture. Because every culture is having something. They're having this aspect somewhere.
Right.
So every country has a chart. So if you're not, like the Australian people, a couple people from Australia wrote and said, we have a lot of food. We're not shipping it. We're without food. So every country is going to experience it differently. I'm a U.S. astrologer, so I'm kind of based here. And this is on, really hard aspects in the New York City chart, as well as in the, because we were the epicenter, and now we were one of the epicenters for the riots and the protests. We have a lot of people protesting very peacefully, so we have those positive visions, and then we have, some of the harder ones. It was
so interesting, Anne, is you don't hear about those as much. And that's the part that just is so frustrating for me, because people were also protesting certain aspects of what was happening before.
Yeah.
But you didn't hear about the peaceful ones. You didn't hear about people like making really rational, logical arguments. You only heard about extreme kind of way off the charts action. But it's so interesting, and I guess interesting is a word, but to watch what gets highlighted, to watch what gets put in the headlines, and have a bit of, skepticism or grain of salt of what is getting portrayed to us as what is actually happening. I've come to the point where I call people in the place and I ask them, what's really happening?
What's going on?
And I'm asking people in the Bay Area, what's actually happening? Because you hear these sensationalist things and it's hard to know what's true. And this is, I know, the Gemini piece
Gemini
too.
story too.
It's hard to know what's true.
What's true, what's not true. Yeah.
Exactly. And what is worth being up in arms about and what is not. And, it's frustrating because the sources of data seem to be, to me, so compromised that it's hard to know what's actually happening. So again, it goes back to that being comfortable with the uncertainty and continuing to come back to the question of what is mine to do? Because what is mine to do is regardless of, it's not a reaction to, it is in you and it's been in you since the moment you were born. So it's letting that emerge. Right. And that will guide you to right action and to right understanding and right words and all of that. So it's again, down on our knees, breathing, asking for clarity from a place other than, the media, which is probably not going to give us clarity at this point. And having it come from that higher place.
Right. And I would say the goal here, part of the beauty of the Aquarian age is everybody can film something. Everybody can take a picture of what's going on. Everybody can see it.
Yes.
And the other part to remember is you're going to see the things your chart is supposed to see. True. Which sometimes we forget. Like you're going to see something that other people don't see. So when someone says something, did you see? Like I'll go listen to this guy that you read today. But last night when I was listening to Trump's, lecture, call to the governors, and he was talking about this situation, I went and Googled it. And of course it was the short clip and then there was the longer clip. So the short clip, he was just getting kicked. The longer clip, he had a machete. So then there's another part of the story that's not there, right? So that's the other part of the Gemini is look for both sides of the story. Look at the parts, right? So the video we've watched over and over is one guy on his knee on George dying, killing George. But then there's a shot from behind where there's three cops, the one on his head and then two on his back. So then you're like, wow, this is worse than I thought, right? And the kid who shot that was a 17-year-old girl. And she was like, people are giving me a hard time because I didn't stop it. But like, I'm a 17-year-old girl. I just took a picture. So that's the other part is documenting it, putting it out there, trusting that the universe is making all these things available for us to see, whether it's watching a woman fight with somebody in Central Park and call the police and say, I'm being assaulted by an threatening him and being assaulted by an African-American man, and him just standily calming it. And who sent it in? His sister. He didn't send it in. His sister sent it in. Gemini again. So what this is like astrology scavenger hunt,
Yes.
kind of go, okay, let me go look at that. And then let me look at some other stuff. Right. And just kind of your job is to know that you're going to be shown what you're supposed to be shown, to have your reaction, to have you do your work. That's what's going on here, because Mercury's in Cancer. And he's going to be talking to the Saturn and the Pluto in a few days. He's going to go forward and wake them up and then go backwards again and then say, now what do you think? And then he's going to go. And remember, it's part 1, part 2, part 3. And this is a reveal eclipse. I had one woman call. She found out her ex-husband had died and he had another kid. I had another woman call. She found out who her dad was. I mean, the secrets are coming out. So if you ever want to know a secret in your family, this is a good time to ask your mother or your aunt, because they'll tell you. But it also is the secrets want to emerge because they want you to have full knowledge. And then again, how much can you watch? But then again, we're all locked up in our houses, or a lot of us are. And, you got time to watch on the TV and make your decisions and think about things. So it's a very interesting time. And of course, there's the hidden enemy and then there's the visual, so it's this dual nature of all the different things. And we were reopening and now the virus may return, it's all these RE words. And you just have to go, wow, man. isn't this astrology fun? when you're not crying. So at least that's how I'm doing it, So yeah.
Well, in the beginning, you brought up the whitewater rapids.
Yes.
And how we're on that, and you can get flung out, and you can. I mean, and there's a sense of adventure if we can tap into that, and what is being shown to us, and what you were saying about like what we see in the headlines or what we personally tune into is kind of like our chart talking to it, like what we need to see and what needs to be revealed to us. Underneath that is something you said in passing last week, which was, I trust in a benevolent universe.
Yes.
I believe the universe is benevolent.
Yep.
And so that is trusting that what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what's being revealed to you is what needs to be right now in this moment for you to become that full expression of that seedling of an idea that is in your chart, that is the blueprint of who you are. So that's all emerging and trusting in that unfolding process as it's happening, but also meeting it, taking the action that we're spurred to take. That's it. You guys, this is huge.
Yeah.
This is huge.
Well, I've been saying it to everybody. We're sitting at the edge of history. I mean, this is better, from a, what's the right word for it? From a moment in time, like think of how cool it is that we're all incarnated now, going through this, having this consciousness raised in us. And we're really seeing it. So, we're basically, okay, we have to get through it and we have to get onto the other side, and it will not be easy, but it will be our journey. And when we get to, everybody always says after a Pluto transit, I never want to go through that again. But boy, did I learn a lot. And I am completely different. It's a permanent change. And you have to trust that the universe is benevolent and you're changing in a way that helps you become benevolent, that helps you become a better person or moves you along on your path. And we know the universe the Tony Kushner quote that I love so much from Angels in America, the world spins forward. It does not spin backwards. We go forward, and we may go forward and then, fall on our knees. Remember when I was raised a Catholic, Jesus went down 3 times. And what is Saturn? 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So you may feel that you're a little bit down on your knees, but that also, is part of what Saturn does. He makes us humble. He makes us understand our limitations as well as our gifts. Yeah. And our fears. And he's also our work. More importantly, I'm a Virgo. I'm going to make you go back to work.
Yeah.
What is it possible for you to do? And you can do stuff. Everybody's got a job. We're all members of the chorus.
I am possible.
I am possible.
All right. Yeah. And thank you so much for being here with us every week. Thank you for translating the language of light so that we can actually take it and anchor it here on this planet. And it's such an incredible gift. Such an incredible gift that you give us here every week. Thank you. It's
the gift. I give you the gift of astrology, which I think is, if everybody knew their charts and were doing the higher forms of their chart, we'd have a good world.
Yes.
And that's our job. That's our job, is to do the higher form of your chart, the higher form of those energies. Because they have lower forms. They do.
Well, and to see the lower form, I think that's what's happening right now. We're recognizing that lower form. We're seeing it there, and we're like, ooh, I'd rather not recreate that.
Yeah, and it's also, I'm 65, so I've seen a lot of change in my time. And I thought it was really instructive that Larry Kramer died, because the AIDS epidemic was my first epidemic. And he was a protester, and Dr. Fauci said, there was medicine before and after Larry, right? And I think this is one of those seminal moments. And I think we are wise to pay attention to it and to notice that he left just as there's this huge protest, and he's probably going, God damn, I showed him how to do it, and understand that we are in this moment where we're all being asked to take action. And you want to be really clear what your action is. Yeah.
And thanks to all of you
for listening. Yes,
and listening and being here, and for your enthusiastic encouragement of this weekly segment. Anne and I love it. I look forward to it every week. I look forward to sharing this with you. So thank you all for being here. and just for being a part of this community and for being a part of this incredible change that we're literally in the throes of co-creating. So
we're birthing it, baby. We're birthing
it.
Remember, you're a mother. You remember those little
yes.
You know, hey, or an orgasm. I'll go with that too. You know, where you're at that right at that moment. You know, except it's till January, so it's kind of a long time. But okay, we can do it.
We can do it. We can do
and
it.
our job. Remember, all of you guys watching this, everybody in your world knows you do this stuff, right? So they go to you. What the hell is going on? You can say, down on your knees, do your work. What's your work? What is possible for you to do? Because we all have a chat.
And especially look at the things that seem impossible.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Well, that's your Saturn. That's your Saturn. Because right. Saturn's always where we go, really, I have to do that? Because I remember earlier today, I was sitting here crying, and I thought, I don't know that I can do this today. And I was like, nope, my job is to do this. My job is to be an astrologer. So go out there and do your astrology. But I almost emailed him and said, Amanda, I'm having a really bad day. I can't do it. No, Anne, breathe, do it. You can do it. And that is Saturn. He kind of gets you, where you kind of go, or you take a deep breath. Saturn's where you take it, you go, okay, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Yeah. Similar. I normally send out the weekly digest on Monday, and I went to write it, and it was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. Something's not falling right. And then I slept on it. I meditated on it. And then finally this morning I was like, oh, okay, I know what I need to write. But it's like the same thing as you. It's like, how do we meet this moment? How do we meet this moment? So we totally did the long-winded thing.
We did the long-winded thing.
Oh, wow. We nailed that.
Sorry, gang. If you only thought, it's going to be 20 minutes, it's a little longer. And Amanda's not going to tell you the right minute to tune into because she recorded it. Tune in 1 minute and 50 seconds. That was very cute, Amanda.
41 minutes.
41 minutes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And, we are offering some additional resources this month. This is a month where we're going to need it. Yep. So we have the solstice panel event, the free solstice panel event that we're doing with 7 different astrologers, and that's astrologyhub.com/solstice. So they're going to be tapping into why this solstice is so significant. It's also the eclipse, and the rest of the year, what this is going to mean for the rest of the year. We're also doing a solstice ceremony on the actual day of the solstice eclipse.
That's really important. Yeah.
So if you sign up for that panel, you're also going to get information about the ceremony. That is also free. This is also going to be kicking off a 2-week enrollment period for our Inner Circle membership. So for those of you who are like, I want that community, I want to be studying and immersed in astrology for the rest of the year, we are going to open up enrollment for 2 weeks for those people that want to jump in at that time. It's all here. We're so grateful to be here with all of you. Anne, you're amazing. Thank you.
Astrology, you're amazing. Amanda, thank you for hosting us and making astrology so accessible to the world. In your pleasure. Saturn and Leo way.
my pleasure.
She's doing her work, people. That's her job. She's supposed to do this. This is her job. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll see you all very soon. Aloha.
Bye, guys. Have a good week.